The storm rattled the old wooden house as if trying to tear it apart, howling through the broken window frames and shaking the rusted gutters like chains. Inside, a small lantern flickered weakly in the corner, barely illuminating the trembling silhouette of a little girl who sat curled up on the dusty floorboards. She was only 8 years old, but her shoulders carried a loneliness so heavy that most adults would collapse under it. Everyone in town knew about the orphan girl in the weather-beaten house, but nobody ever stepped inside. Nobody checked on her. Nobody remembered her name anymore. Yet tonight, as thunder cracked open the sky and the world outside roared, something was coming toward her life, something loud, unexpected, and unlike anything she had ever known. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of strangers becoming family, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Her name was Lila. She had lived alone for almost a year, ever since her parents' car slid off a rainy highway and left her with only memories, an old house, and a silence that seemed to swallow everything around her. Social services tried to find relatives, but none came forward. The neighbors pretended they didn't notice a thin girl fetching water, buying a few vegetables with coins she collected, or carrying firewood twice her size just to keep the house warm. Some felt pity but convinced themselves she'd be fine. Others simply turned away. And so, the house became her entire world: creaking rooms, peeling wallpaper, a roof that leaked in 5 different spots, and an overgrown yard filled with weeds taller than her shoulders. Every morning she swept the porch because it reminded her of her mother's voice, gentle and patient, teaching her how to hold a broom. Every night she whispered goodnight to her father's old jacket that hung by the door, trying to imagine his arms around her. She ate little, slept little, and spoke even less. The loneliness pressed against her from every side, and there were days she felt like the house itself was breathing sadness with her. But life has a strange way of shifting in moments when the ground feels most fragile. It happened on a quiet afternoon when the sun was sinking behind the pine trees, and Lila sat outside tying her shoelace with trembling fingers. In the distance she heard it, a deep rumbling, like rolling thunder but sharper, growing louder and louder until the gravel road trembled beneath her feet. She panicked at first, scrambling back toward the porch as the sound multiplied, splitting into several roaring engines. Within seconds, 20 enormous motorcycles turned onto the old dirt road that led straight to the abandoned houses nearby. Not one, not two, but 20 bikers, all dressed in heavy jackets, boots dusty from travel, their headlights glowing like fierce eyes cutting through the dusk. Lila hid behind the porch pillar, heart racing. She had never seen so many bikers at once. People in town always gossiped that bikers brought trouble. Some said they were criminals. Others claimed they were nomads with no home. Lila didn't know what was true, but she knew one thing: nobody had ever ridden down this forgotten road. Nobody had ever gotten this close to her house. And now 20 strangers had arrived, settling into the abandoned lot next door, unpacking gear, laughing loudly, and calling out to each other as if they were building a small camp. For days she watched them from behind her window: tall men and tough-looking women with tattoos, loud voices, and boots that thudded heavily across the ground. They worked from sunrise to sundown, cleaning the old cabins, fixing roofs, rebuilding fences, and even planting flowers by the walkway. Lila didn't understand why they were doing it. She didn't understand why they came. But the bikers noticed things. They noticed the little shadow in the window every time they laughed too loudly. They noticed how the light in her house rarely turned on. They noticed the small footprints leading to the water pump. And they noticed the unmistakable silence of a child who had no one. The first to truly see her was a tall biker with silver streaks in his beard. He always worked quietly, unlike the others. One afternoon, while repairing the fence closest to her house, he deliberately hammered more slowly, hoping she would peek out. She did. And for the first time in what felt like months, someone smiled at her. She didn't smile back. She couldn't. Her heart was too used to being afraid. But the smile stayed with her all night. Little by little, the bikers left small signs of kindness without ever pressuring her. One morning she found a basket on her porch with fresh fruit and bread. Another day she discovered her broken garden gate mysteriously repaired. Once, when she woke up in the middle of the night from a nightmare, she heard the soft strumming of a guitar drifting from the bikers' camp, a gentle melody that felt like someone telling her she wasn't alone in the dark. Still, she kept her distance. She didn't know how to ask for help. She didn't know if she deserved it. But life forces moments upon us. One windy afternoon, while collecting water, Lila lost her footing on the slippery stones near the pump and fell hard. The bucket rolled away, and pain shot up her ankle so sharply she screamed. For the first time in a long time, her voice echoed through the entire empty road. Within seconds, footsteps pounded on the ground, and one of the bikers sprinted toward her. She tried to crawl away, terrified, but he knelt down, hands raised gently, as if approaching a frightened kitten. Without a word, he lifted her carefully, wrapping his jacket around her small shaking body, and carried her back to the porch. That moment became the turning point. They brought her warm food that night. They left a small flashlight by her door. They fixed her broken window so the cold wouldn't seep in. They patched the roof. They repaired the fence entirely. And though she still hardly spoke, she began watching them openly, curiosity slowly replacing fear. One of the biker women, named Mara, always waved at her when passing by. Another biker left small handmade wooden toys on the porch, never knocking, always walking away before she saw him. Weeks passed, and the bikers became part of her world, loud but gentle, rough-looking but soft-hearted, fierce but protective. They noticed everything she needed even when she never asked. When winter approached and icy winds seeped through the walls of her fragile house, the bikers spent an entire day reinforcing her walls, adding insulation, sealing cracks, and ensuring warmth. She sat on the steps, hugging her knees, watching them work with tears she didn't even notice were falling. No one had ever cared this much since her parents died. And perhaps the most beautiful moment came when the tall silver-bearded biker knocked softly on her door one evening. She didn't open it fully, but he spoke gently through the crack. He told her that in their motorcycle club, nobody was left behind, not family, not strangers, not anyone who needed a hand. He said they weren't here to frighten her or invade her life. They were here to rebuild their own lives after losing friends in an accident, and they chose this place because it was quiet, but they had no idea it would also bring someone who needed them. Lila listened silently. She didn't know how to respond, so she simply nodded. From that night onward, her world grew a little brighter. She started walking outside more. She began sitting near the fence, watching them laugh. Sometimes she even felt her lips curve into small smiles she couldn't fully hide. And slowly, so slowly it felt like unfolding wings, she began to trust again. They taught her how to plant flowers. They fixed her swing. They invited her to watch their bonfire from a distance until she felt brave enough to sit with them. They treated her not like an outsider, but like a little sister, someone they vowed to protect. Spring arrived, and along with it came a miracle Lila didn't even realize she had been praying for. On a bright morning, she stepped outside to find 20 motorcycles lined up in front of her house like shining horses. The bikers stood together, wearing their jackets proudly, and the silver-bearded one stepped forward, holding something in his hands. It was a small leather vest, tiny, carefully stitched, with the same emblem they all wore. But across the back, embroidered in soft white thread, was a single word: family. For the first time since her parents passed away, Lila cried openly, not from fear, not from hunger, not from pain, but from a soul-deep relief that she wasn't alone anymore. They didn't replace her parents. They didn't try to. But they stood beside her with a strength she had never known, and a love that expected nothing in return. 20 strangers had moved into an abandoned space, and somehow filled the emptiness in her life with warmth, noise, laughter, and belonging. They gave her a childhood again. They gave her hope. They gave her a family when she had none. If this story touched your heart or reminded you that kindness can come from the most unexpected places, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Channel Name. Your support helps keep these emotional stories alive. Before we end, special request: comment below what part of the story moved you the most. Your words inspire the next story.